Hello everyone, my name is Lorthorn, and welcome back to Minecraft, Dungeons and Dragons, or Dragons and Dungeons, whatever we wish to call it really. Today, it's going to be something a little bit different, because I am going to build a building. Now not everything always goes as planned, so sometimes you need backups, or alternatives. In attempts to record the creation of the building that I made, I was in creative mode and I had another computer set up recording me doing it with another account which my brother so dutifully lended to me. However, I made a mistake in the recording and none of the footage was usable. I know how to avoid that in the future, but as for now, I've installed the create mod. And with a create cannon, hopefully we can do something similar to what was done before in talking about building this building. So, we'll get the cannon ready, and it will start placing again. Now that we have had the foundation done, I can get back to talking about, I usually build things as you would construct a building. As we can see here, this is the logs being put in. These are meant to support the walls, as I don't think cobblestone can really support itself to a certain point after you extract it, so I like putting logs in as supporting structures. And later on, when I was working on the build, I decided, hey, let's put a fire in there. Even though I was originally planning to leave the floor out and open, I went back and corrected and had this big old fire roaring in here. It's interesting how when it's built with the create cannon, it layers it differently than how you build it. It layers it from the ground up and just keeps going. Whereas my typical way of building buildings is I build them as if it was an actual structure, and so I put in foundations and then I figure out where the structural integrity is going to be. I build up the supports, the logs. I lay everything out, then I fill in the floors and put other things in, then I get the roof installed, and I slowly go from there, making it as if it was actually constructed. Originally I wasn't certain what I was going to do for the base, but I really liked putting the cobblestone around the sides here. Making that the solid base where everything's built up, sort of you have the solid structure and then you stack the stones up and put it in place. And you have the little steps coming down as well to sort of show that it's stone stacked and it's in place. And the corners here, I originally filled in, but then I thought it just looked better with them being left empty like this. Sort of gave it a squarish, more medieval vibe. When I build towers, I often like to leave the circle base behind, sort of showing off the foundations in one of the core blocks that the tower is going to be made of. And here, I use the stone bricks to do that, sort of keep the circle in place, fill in with wood around the side, but also keep the line segments, just to show, yeah, this is a circle, that's how I built it, that's the foundation of this building. And now comes a weird evolution of the walls, where I kept considering how to build them, how to work with them. I wasn't certain at first what I was going to do for these walls. I was considering making them some sort of pure cobblestone wall or some sort of wooden supports in them, and over time they evolved into these weird owl faces. I'm not exactly certain how it happened, but it just went that way, and that's quite often how building buildings goes, is you're going through it and then suddenly the design sort of shows up and you roll with it. Because originally the wood and planks, the oak wood planks, were just meant to be supports to help keep the cobblestone in place. But then I decided to make them into frames instead. I think it just looked right to me. Maybe other people going to the builds know exactly what they're doing. But I have a vague idea of what I want to do, and then I just sort of run with it and see what I can do, what I can make. And over time, my building has evolved to not being one solid thing. Before, this would have all just been cobblestone. But now, it has a mix of various different blocks in it, wooden supports and the piece of wood. And this comes from me making them like buildings. If I didn't do that, then they'd still probably be quite ugly. The next thing I need to work on probably is adding more depth, which I attempted to do, as you can see here, with the spruce trap door, sort of giving it that window frame idea. Another thing when building I like to take in consideration is height. How do I want the light coming in? How do I want to look out the windows? What is it going to be? And as here, this is a more grander greeting hall, so while you can look out the windows, you have to sort of jump to look out them. That's not the point of a nice sort of house where you stand up in the morning and you take a look out your window. No, it's so light comes in. It's more of a grander sort of almost church-like building with this fireplace in and fenced off so no one burns themselves, of course. I added stone bricks over the tops of these wooden frames, sort of as a keystone, even though keystones are usually only for stone structures. It felt right to add them there. And then I started getting experimental and playing with stripped oak logs. I made these the upper rafter supports. They had a pleasing look to me. I thought they just looked nice, and it was different than going with oak logs the whole way, making the oak logs the upstairs supports. It gives a visual difference in variety, and here's where I get a bit 3D, because I want to have supports. Again, adding that depth to it. But also, this is how you build a building. Your roof can't just go up and be free hanging. I mean, it can, but that's not the most structurally integral, so I build in supports. The tower is an incredibly basic tower. Basic windows, basic walls, spiral staircase going up. Unfortunately, with the spiral staircase design, and especially with the size of this tower, there is not much space for doing anything yet. And the grand fire inside this hall also consumes a lot of space, so although my original plans were to actually have both these buildings be practical and for use, they've both rather become decorative fronts to the whole building project. And I will have to build slightly bigger in the future, I have figured, if I actually want the building to be useful on the inside. As it stands now, you always underestimate how much space you'll need, and this is definitely not enough space to be doing a lot of the mods, as they take a ton of space. And finally we come to the roof, my least favorite part of building a building, although I try to make it more tolerable and interesting. Roofs are an absolute nightmare to craft, though, in my opinion. I added in these spruce fences as sort of interior rafter support, so it wasn't solid blocks the whole way, which these would actually decrease the insulation quite a bit within this building. But we don't have to worry about insulation in Minecraft, and if there is a mod where you insulate buildings, it'd have to be incredibly sophisticated to understand how it actually works, so this is probably fine even if there is some mod that does that, with any real sense of insulation interiors. Another part of the design to decide is the upstairs sort of attic underneath the roof had to be accessible, sort of a walkway where you can walk around, inhale the smoke, and also go to this bridge out here in between that main building and the tower. And it's very reminiscent of a build I did in Valheim. That build then got deleted from the Valheim bug, which was notorious at the time for just killing your saves, and it was really disheartening and actually made me stop playing the game, which is a shame because I was enjoying it and I really liked the building I had made so far. It looked really cool. Now here we can see something that made this build take a lot longer than it should have. I decided to start highlighting the outside edge with a darker wood, so using dark oak and then spruce as the ceiling, again changing up the wood color variant, so it's slightly different than the oak everywhere. Although for the upstairs wall I still kept it to the oak to keep that pattern. Here we can sort of see the owls, although these actually really help hide the owlishness of them, which I didn't notice before, but without those fences there, this building had owl faces all over it. In the interior you can still slightly see it, however again the smoke masks it, which is a nice side effect of that smoke rising up through the halls. Now I often find that roofs that just continue going up, straight up, every single step along the way, following the same pattern, are not only rather plain and bland like the villager housing roofs, tedious to make, but also just too tall. Usually you don't want your roof to be too tall in my opinion, unless you're going for a very particular style. I like evening them out, flattening the roof so it has a sort of rounded curve, instead of going into a super peak, because there's a bunch of unused space there. I also found that I wanted chimneys rising out of the top of the building, but the smoke didn't rise high enough, so I added in extra fireplaces for extra chimneys. So a bit of an illusion of smoke going the whole way. Purely decorative, of course. I decided to have these supports from the very ground that frame the doors go all the way up into the roof. And even further to the top. Once it finishes its layering here, it's going to throw a few extra bits in. So they poke out, giving it a kind of Vikingish style. Kind of, it's like pseudo-Viking. And I do like my chimneys. Wooded chimneys. What will they think of next? At this point it's just going to work on the tower, which is fine by me. The main building is finished. The main building is finished besides the doors and interior ladders. And, well, it'll finish those up later. The tower doesn't have much more to go either besides the roof, which I actually put some time and consideration into. I do like having the alchemist table inside here, as the crafting station for alchemy in a tower always seems appropriate. And instead of going for glass for the tower, giving it that watchtower feel of the wooden fencing. Although you can't shoot arrows through them. It's still that sort of defensive thing, even if it's not really defensive. And up here I decided to try something new, a kind of different wooden frame for the roof. The sort of spiral out circular supports. As I did supports for the rest of the main building, I thought it'd be appropriate to continue with supports for this part of the building, and I tried my best to figure out a way to manage it. I think I did a half-decent job. Then the roof extends just a little bit farther than the rest of it, and is rounded, but not quite the same roundedness as the rest of the tower. It goes with a vaguely different design, just to expand it and give it that overhang, sort of sluicing rain off, wider upper tower feel. And again, I tried to stay consistent with the highlighting the roof the same way, with the dark oak and the spruce, to change the highlighting of the whole building. I actually had to go and redo this whole roof, which was a rather amusing experience as I decided to do the highlighting after I'd built the whole thing in dark oak, which made the project take even longer. And now for the grand spin and tour of the building. I always regret having to put torches on roofs, but with this roof design it was just a necessity to stop mob spawning, and I think it turned out nicely. I put it together. I really like this build. It's a simple, small, elegant start to a much bigger keep I plan on making. I think it looks really nice. Of course, I built it, so I will think it's probably nice, although some buildings I don't like my own design. The interior is very simple and hasn't been decorated at all yet, besides the lighting I've added within and these ladders that allow you to go up to here. One issue, of course, is I decided to put the cyan bed up here, which is in the video, and we have all these torches contained inside, and this sort of unusable attic space here. So again, even more unusable space in this tower, but we're going for looks here, not practicality. You can see a little bit of the underneath here, and a detail that amused me, which is hard to see just by the nature of it getting laid out, is somewhere in here. Yes, we have this little bit of spruce fencing, which I decided to add as extra support, and the cobblestone running down the sides. All together, I just think that this will suit well. Quite happy with what I made. Although, maybe some lanterns hanging from these logs will be a good idea. That being said though, that's the build completed, and as best as recovery I can do of it. So, we'll get back to the video. Now I'm not exactly certain what to put within the keep now, or the hall and the tower. I have some ideas. Definitely I can build the starts to the other mods. I also believe I had a quest set out before me to find some stones of sorcery. And a good start on that. Seems like a good idea. I believe it was actually, the spot was right here to begin the digging. So, going to need some iron, about 4 of it. I'm going to need some sticks. What happened to all my wood? Some of it went to that building, but not all of it. I suspect I'll have to cut down a tree. And to cut down a tree, I need an axe. How tiresome. Now, normally, I would want to go to sleep at such a said time, but going starstone searching is idyllic at night. So, if we happen to have the sticks required, then we can attach the middle stones and we can get it going. Go find them. Evening, gentlemen. Good to see that you're skilled. I'll leave you to your business. Well, I dwell in mine. Digging straight down into hell. Terrible plan. But hey, we might fall straight into lava. So, it'll all be worth it in the end, right? Ah. See? Not immediate death. Sword. 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 Alright. Heal. Dungeon. Right then. Well, not dealt with her. Unfortunately, I think that's a boss. The husk? Maybe I shouldn't tango with the Domingo in such a spot. But all that tangoing will happen next time on Minecraft Dungeons and Dragons. Dragons and Dungeons. So, thank you very much for watching. Until that time comes around, goodbye.